All set. All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this evening's regular meeting of the Swedentown Board to order. I'm going to ask everyone to rise as we recite the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and if you remain standing for a moment as we remember our first responders, our fighting men and women around the world, as well as the victims of COVID-19, the medical professionals who are caring for them and their families. And then as we also remember Arnie Mano and his family, a longtime employee of the town as well as a resident of the town. Thank you. All right, this evening we have one item of correspondence to note. It is a letter from the New York State Department of Transportation with regard to some changes to the signal timer at Sweden Walker Road and Route 31. Essentially what they said is that they're going to make some changes to the timing of that signal so that traffic will flow better there during rush or peak hours. So that's the only item of correspondence to report. The next item is reports of departments and board members, and I'm going to start with the various department heads that we have involved this evening. You know what, let me do a quick roll call first, actually, if I could. Bob Musbeck, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Rhonda Humby?
I'm here.
Randy Hoke?
I am here.
And Patty Hales?
I'm here.
Okay, so the board is fully composed this evening. So let's start with department heads, we have Lisa Strabel, who's here with me. Lisa, anything to report from the finance department?
The projects are going forward. As you all know, the bids are due next week. We'll be opening the bids. And the water district project is going forward. We filed with several agencies this week, our plans. So they're moving forward.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you, Lisa. Karen Sweeting, Town Clerk.
No report at this time.
Okay. Thank you. Brian Ingraham, Highway Superintendent.
Yeah, we've just removed all our snow fence for the season, cleaned up the cemetery grounds, get the grounds and the roads ready for the mowing season. All of our street sweeping is done for the spring, all of our guttered and curbed roads on town, state, and county highways. We removed all our plows, wings, and salters. Steam cleaned all our trucks and equipment to remove the winter salt residue and buildup. We completed some drainage work on Swamp Road and Holly Street. We've been working on cemetery burials. And we've started our first bond project of the season on East Canal Road. Started with some cross culvert replacements and drainage work in preparation for paving, milling and paving, which will start around the 11th of May if everything goes as planned. Other than that, I think that's about it.
Okay, Brian, thank you. Town Attorney, Mr. Bell.
I have no report this evening.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll move into any other department heads on the line that I forgot? Okay, very good. So we'll move into board reports. We'll start with Hales. I'm trying to think who's first in the alphabet. Patty Hales. So, Councilperson Hales, if you give your report, please.
Sure. So I have my report for the Seymour Library, and I just sent the written reports to all the board members and included Karen Sweeting on that email. For the library, I've attached the March 2020 financials, which look pretty positive, but the one thing that's counted in the March financials year-to-date and for the month is the receipts of the transfers back from the foundation. And so that gives them an extra $200,000 of unbudgeted revenue. So it looks like they've already received 96% of their budgeted amount. So I just caution you in reviewing these that in my mind, I wouldn't count that as revenue, but a transfer back to the library. So you just have to look at these not in an overly optimistic way. And then I just want to mention that since my last report, which you have to remember our last reports were on February 25th, the town of Sweden has appointed 2 Seymour Library board members, Mark Shada, who will serve through March 31st of 2020, and Chris Sharp, who will serve through December 31st of 2021. And they're serving out the terms of the board appointees who resigned, and they will join Mary Squires, who we appointed in December, and she has a full 5-year term that began in January. So I feel our town residents are well served by those 3 appointments, and they've kind of hit the ground running with what they are doing with the library and the questions and things that they ask. Leading into that, Kevin and I are going to hold 2 virtual meetings on May 8th and the 15th to just sort of orient those 3 library board members for the background and current status of the tri-municipal agreement and the role of the library board members for the town of Sweden. The rest of my notes are about meetings that were held and meetings that were canceled and those sorts of things. But I want to draw the board's attention to the article that was in the paper and was part of the library board's meeting on April 15th of what is going on during the New York State pause and how they're trying to conduct business under this new dynamic. And really and truly, they've been pretty creative in what they've done. They're holding a lot of virtual programs and for children and adults. And for example, there was a presentation by a Holocaust survivor that was canceled or postponed in March that's going to be held soon. So it's they've brought in some new dynamics, and that's a good thing. The other thing they're doing, a new service, is helping people. The name of it is Helping You Get Back from the Pandemic, which pairs adult patrons with librarians in search of jobs, and it helps them craft resumes and cover letters and prepare for interviews. So I feel that they're being quite appropriate for the new circumstances that everyone is living under. And I think I do just want to mention that all of the principal of the funds, the library funds, have been returned from the foundation. The last deposit was made on March 23rd, and the spreadsheet of all transactions was forwarded to Jim Bell as the town attorney, Krista Filipowicz as the treasurer for the library, for the CD interest calculation. Whether or not we return just the allowed CD money or all of the earnings, I think that needs to still be sorted out, but everything has been turned over to Jim. Jim, did you receive my email?
I did, and I'm going to be talking to the town attorney for Clarkson about it, Richard Olson.
Yeah.
Yes, I did receive it, Pat.
Okay, perfect. So that ball is no longer in my court of what I promised the library to get that information together. So does anybody have any questions about the library before I move on to the rec center? I'll take that as a no. Okay, so my usual updates on the rec center are obviously all about our goals and accomplishments are on pause, as you can well imagine, during this time. But again, the rec center has, and the staff have been pretty nimble in what they're accomplishing. They're doing daily live streams of programs and little things for our residents on Facebook. And a lot of them are youth-oriented. They've had science experiments, sporting drills, for example, for soccer to get ready for the season, cooking is not just for youth, but they're simple, healthy meals. At least most of them appear to be healthy. Then there's craft classes and things like that. And I looked at some of the sample number of views on these. They're anywhere from about 240, and the science experiment, one of them I looked at, was close to 800 views. So it's not as if they're going into a black hole in space. They're actually being looked at, and I'm happy to say that that's what's happening in this time of self-quarantine and social distancing. So that's all good news. They actually, for the Silver Sneakers program, they contacted by phone 166 seniors that are involved at the rec center. And today's class, for example, had 48 views. So it's really taking hold in a different form. And on top of the programs they're trying to do through live streaming, they're cleaning the place from top to bottom. Literally, it goes from ceilings to floors. They have worked on the locker rooms in the fitness center. I hear that kitchen is next. That should be quite an undertaking. And for each space, they have a checklist of what to do, and what has grown out of that is checklists that they will use after the pause is over with, so that, things will have, instead of things you never get to, that they'll stay on top of all of the work that they've progressed on during this time. Todd and Roger have been involved in the cleaning and things there because they're not spending time striping the baseball fields and the soccer fields that are not being used, sadly not being used. There are a few ongoing decisions that are going to have to be made. Some of them involve the board, whether or not to proceed. For example, our July 3rd celebration, the board will, of course, issue or not issue the fireworks permit. We still have a little bit of time to decide about that. And, it depends on what social distancing requirements are required at that time. We are thinking that the day-long celebration on the Hill will most likely be canceled. And just like a lot of summer festivals have been canceled, but we're hoping to still hold the fireworks. And Jill told me that most recreation departments have canceled both the celebrations and the fireworks. But I'm hoping we will at least go forward with the fireworks and can adhere to the social distancing requirements. And another reason for things, the summer scoreboard, we don't think we're going to pay for and go for all the printing that's usually done, and because we have to make the decision next week, but most likely we will forego that cost in favor of using websites and advertising social media to promote our programs as they become available. We paid for a few weeks ago the spring brochure. Most of those programs never even happened, and we just don't know the state of things at this uncertain time. The summer programs are due to start March 22nd. We'll just have to see how it goes. The summer camps are moving forward with, the process and putting in applications to Monroe County until they tell us that we can't. And that's the best we're going to do under the circumstances. But I'm proud of the staff there and what they're trying to accomplish with one hand tied behind their backs. And I'm sure all of our departments are operating the same way. Does anyone have any questions for me?
No.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Patty. Yeah, and
Yep.
I think those videos have been tremendous. Just, I think, pass along the community's thanks for that. I know a lot of younger people are using them, parents using them as a diversion, so I think that's a much appreciated thing. So, anyway.
Yeah, I think they've been pretty creative about what they've done.
Indeed.
Good.
Plus, you get
Good.
to see
I'm glad
everybody's
to hear
houses. At least a little shot of their houses, right?
Yes, a peek into their home.
Indeed. All right, Councilperson Hoke.
Okay, so regarding the courts, there's not much to report because they are closed with the pause, just like everybody else. I talked to Justice Perry, and he's confirmed that the last he heard, the courts, the unified court system, will be closed through the end of May, which I guess is probably going to be up in the air depending on what the governor has planned. But right now it looks like the end of May, and the courts will start to get back into session. On the IT front, I had a conference call with our IT provider. We went over a lot of things. We took the opportunity with some downtime to go over some of our disaster recovery and backups. We discussed our data retention policy, our disaster recovery policy. We went over quarterly backups and our annual backups and discussed exactly how that's done, how it's provided, and we went over the actual amount of time it would take to bring us back up online, which is about 24 hours from a total data loss, fire, flood, things like that. So, our IT provider is fantastic. We talked at length about ways to kind of cut costs and some of the projects we have coming up, because obviously we don't know financially, what the next year or two looks like based on kind of how the economy's going. And he acquiesced and decided he would work with me a little bit, and said that if we can do some of the heavier lifting with some of our town staff regarding some of the things that need to be put in place and changed around a little bit with people that have the skill set, they're willing to kind of let us do some things that normally take hours and hours of labor and save the costs, and they'd come in and do the technical things to make sure everything was hooked up right. So one of the things we talked about is we have 17 PCs that are up at the rec center that are not on the domain, which means they're not part of the server network, and they're not backed up the same way, and they're also not able to access shared drives the same way. So I'm going to actually do the work on joining those 17 PCs back to our domain and getting the user profiles moved over. I'm going to work with Lisa, although she may not know it yet. I'm going to work with Lisa, and we're going to kind of restructure the file sharing and the drives, and we're going to try and organize those and put those into a better way that people can find things, and that are just a little bit more secure, to make sure that our permissions are exactly where they need to be. Let's see what else. Oh, they also, regarding the project we had discussed, obviously on hold, the one that we looked at potentially of moving the internet from the Farmers Museum and beaming it over to the rec center. Obviously, we're going to kind of hold that, but that also gave me a chance to talk to him a little bit. And he said if we do some of the heavy lifting, like running the wires and putting up the antennas and things like that, that they would come in and do the programming and just kind of the easy stuff that would probably save us about 80% of the cost of doing the whole thing. And I did talk to him also about the ability of the staff to remotely access their PCs. Because we've got a pretty high-end firewall, they were actually able to allow people to use their home computers to remotely access their desktop. And that doesn't compromise our network, but it allows them to get some work done remotely without kind of getting access to the shared drive. And that's about it.
Okay. Well, I think, in the last year or two, we've pushed hard to bring our IT system into the modern age. And I think, Randy, to have an IT professional on board and you're able to help us reduce some of the costs of doing our IT upgrades and to perhaps even troubleshoot and make us better than we are now, I really appreciate the work you're doing with our IT system. So thank you for keeping it up and keeping the pressure on.
My pleasure.
All right. Councilwoman Humby.
Yes, hello. So I have a few updates to pass along. Brian touched on the cemetery update that burials started mid-April, 6 burials so far this month, and everything's cleaned up, the grounds and the roads, to prepare for mowing, which should be starting this week, I believe, that already started. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brian. The flag project is finished as far as the 5 smaller, is it the 4 smaller cemeteries or the 5? Everything except for Lakeview has been finished digitally, so the drone pictures are edited now to show where the veterans' graves are located. And the flag project should be starting Friday, May 15th at 5 p.m. I'm going to add this to my Facebook page, but we're going to be reaching out for some volunteers. We're going to start with the people who actually went stone to stone to list the names of the veterans to see if they're interested in putting their flags up at the smaller cemeteries. And then also for Lakeview, we're going to need about 20 people to put the flags out. That would be, again, Friday, May 15th at 5 p.m. Meet at the Farmers Museum. I would be the contact person if people want to volunteer for that, and I can add their name to the list and get in touch with them. Bob Musbeck ordered the flags. They haven't shipped yet, so we're really hoping, fingers crossed, to have them by early May to see if we can have them ready to place the flags May 15th. As far as dog control goes, it's kind of interesting the effect that COVID has had on dog control, but people have more time on their hands and they seem to be a little bit more high-strung, so there's been a lot more complaints than normally about barking dogs, and people are just kind of on edge. So Kathy has responded to more complaints than normal. Of course, she's not doing door-to-door issuing tickets, but she's only doing not door-to-door, but going to people's homes when there are complaints. So the rabies clinic has been postponed till at least August or September, and we're going to share the date when we have that nailed down. But as far as dog control, I asked, she doesn't have any immediate needs. Her and her husband are just plugging away, doing what they need to do. And lastly, Sweden Farmers Museum, similar to what Patty was saying about the 4th of July Festival, the plans for the Harvest Festival ultimately will be a board decision, but we're just kind of pushing that off a little bit longer just to see what happens, what changes. I was speaking with someone on the committee earlier, just, saying that it's not that hard to pull it together, but we want to make sure the right planning goes in. So I guess we'll see what unfolds in the next month or so. And our board meetings have been on hold and will be until COVID restrictions are lifted.
Okay, can I ask you one question on your report, Rhonda?
Yes, sir. Yep.
So with the flag placement, the flag placement at all 5 cemeteries is happening on May 15th?
Yeah, after I said that out loud, I got confused myself. It's not. I don't believe it is on the same day. I guess it all depends on when the flags come in. So that's the piece we're missing. So when the flags come in, we're going to send out smaller groups to do the smaller cemeteries. It shouldn't be too difficult, but we are going to utilize that big group of 20 volunteers on May 15th at 5 p.m. But you're right, the smaller cemeteries will not be May 15th. So stay tuned for when we get the flags in for that.
The May 15th, 5 p.m. will be the Lakeview flag placement. We'll be using the old maps for now.
That's right. Yep.
We'll do the 4 smaller cemeteries at another time and date to be announced. And in terms of doing the data collection for new maps for Lakeview, info will be forthcoming on that?
It will. Mike Zale is working on the drone pictures, and when I checked in with him, I believe it was last week or the week before, he was continuing to work on it. So he is still working on that. I don't believe we will have that up and running before Memorial Day this year, but definitely before next year.
Yeah, before next year. Well, we got delayed this year. Everything has, so.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Terrific. Well, the maps look great, Rhonda. I think it's a tremendous upgrade to what we have. Brian, I'm sure it makes your job easier. And once we get the biggest cemetery done, it's going to be a great thing for years to come. So,
I agree.
Okay, we'll move on to the Deputy Supervisor, Mr. Musbeck.
Good evening. Just to let you know what's happened, why there's a delay with the flags. All the major flag companies who provide cemetery flags and all other American flags, all the different sizes that we have at the Vets Club as well as the Town Hall and everything. They were not in the right concept as far as being necessary to stay open. They closed down for almost 4 weeks, and it's put everybody behind the 8 ball as far as receiving the flags. But I spoke with Tom from Fred's Flags this morning, and he's assuring us the best he can find out that we'll have our flags by the end of the first week in May. So which isn't too far away. But it's a better estimate than he told me. It's first end of April, and then it has been updated today. As far as what's going on at the town park, Todd and Roger, Todd has been doing a lot of relining of the baseball fields, weather permitting, as well as doing a lot of hand raking. There seems like it might have been a mild winter, but there's still a lot of stuff laying around. And the interim, Todd's gone up to the community center and cleaned the carpets, steam cleaned the carpets in a couple spots. He's also painted the weight room, give it a fresh coat of paint. And since our last meeting, we've had Oaks Tree come in and remove approximately 37 trees from the town park, grind them up and clean it up, ground the stumps down, and except for some little shavings left around to keep the holes. We're going to have some settling where the stumps were. There's no evidence that we had any trees removed. They did a very nice job, as they always do. Oaks does a good job. Roger's been finishing up working, weather permitting, when he's inside, just making sure every bit of equipment is in good shape. He's also spent some time down in the town hall getting the heating ducts cleaned out. It was kind of a time-consuming job for him, as well as he's replaced a bunch of ceiling tiles that were stained or needed stuff. We've had 17 hall rentals canceled because of the epidemic. We still have 4 on the books for May right now. They're holding out, hoping that things may change, but it hasn't. Most of the people have been very understanding due to the circumstance. We have not had any problems so far with the playground. But I'm going to make a mention now, and I'd like to have the board's opinion. The boys told me today that there's, even in the evenings or weekends, they're sneaking on the ball fields and practicing. And I'd like to see if we can have signs made to keep them off the ball fields until the park is opened up. What's everybody's feeling on this?
Which fields, Bob? What type of sport? I guess what
baseball
who's
field.
Playing?
Baseball. Yeah.
Interesting. We don't know who. Is it just a pickup game? Is it any organization?
Well, we don't know. He doesn't know because it's happened after work hours or on the weekends. So I'm just wondering if we can, because everything's pretty much in limbo as far as playing and stuff, should we put some signs on the ball fields that they're not to be used during this? Give me some guidance.
I think we need to, because all recreational programs are supposed to be canceled at this time. Plus, just even normally, I don't think we let people just use the fields, unless I'm wrong about that, without having reserved the fields through the rec department. But I think especially under these circumstances, we don't really have a choice. All parks are supposed to be practicing social distancing, and I think we have to put those same signs up that we put on the playground, the playground. And
I'm in agreement with that as well. I'd like to, like I said, I'd like to have everybody's opinion on it so I can go ahead and not feel like I'm stepping on somebody's toes. But along with that, go ahead.
Sorry, Bob. I was just going to say one thing to just clear up. We do not at all police the use of those fields. So once organized activities are done, we more or less let people use them. So that is not it's not something we would typically restrict, but I understand in these circumstances we may want to think about it a bit differently. I will say I don't believe it's any of the rec teams. All the rec teams, all the coaches have been advised very carefully on this by the rec department. The rec department currently is just pushing the season back, might even end up in July and August instead of May and June. But I don't think it's any of the rec programs and the travel teams, Bisons in particular. I have a child involved in those. I'm not aware of any of the Bisons teams who are violating that either. They've had very strict rules. So I don't know who it is, and unless it's just friends or people just playing like a pickup game. I mean, I guess that could happen. But either way, it probably, yeah, I tend to agree, Bob, that we probably should put up signs.
Okay.
And, but I don't know. Rhonda and Randy, do you guys have any thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree. If it's off limits to everybody else, it would only be fair that we make it across the board.
Absolutely.
I just also want to share along with that since we've put the tape up at the playgrounds, naturally we haven't had what you call great spring days yet, but everybody's following the no trespassing or playing on the equipment now, so at least that's positive. So other than that, that's all I've got.
Let me play devil's advocate for 1 second on this. I was just thinking about something. So are we sure that it's groups? It's not just, let's say, a parent taking their children out there to play catch on an open field? Is it
we don't know.
Groups
I mean, Brian brought it, or Todd brought it to my attention today that he's up there in rape fields and stuff, and all of a sudden now there's activity on him, and he has not seen anybody there during our work hours or weekends, so he doesn't know who it is. But he said, I get a field ready, and next thing I know, there's footprints all over the place.
Not that I ever want to spend money we don't need to, but I think to err on the side of caution, we should put the signs up, especially as the nicer days approach, or hopefully the nicer days approach.
Well, that's what I want. If everybody's in favor of it as far as going ahead, I'll go ahead and take care of it.
Yeah.
These guys
I think
do a
it's
lot of good
probably,
work.
I think it's probably 4-1 from the sounds of it. I would not be in favor of it, but I totally understand the reasoning. I think everybody's wearing of this quarantine, and I think it's about time to set people loose. So, but I understand the opinion of the board on it, and I'm fine with that as well.
All right, I'll get a hold of Todd Roger in the morning.
I'm sorry, this is Randy. I just want to make sure I caught that. So we're going to limit, like, somebody going down to play a game of catch, like a father and son or something like that, or mother and son or whatever. Is that, we're also limiting that?
We've got the total park closed down except for the dog park. And the guys are trying to get all the spring work done, weather permitting. And they'll go get a field ready, and then the next day or after the weekend's over, they go and they see they've got to go out and re-rake the infields and everything because people are on them. And I don't know when it's happening. But it's just creating more work for them.
Well, the only thing I would add is that I think that the state parks are technically closed as well. However, they're choosing to not gate them, bar them, and throw people out. So I might err on that side. So I might fall a little bit more with Kevin on this, but I'm not sure. I'm not there to see it, so I guess I'm a little undecided.
Bob, just to be clear, I don't think that we have closed everything but the dog park. People are they can still walk in the park. They can still use the
They're playing, there's
frisbee.
walking and stuff, but they're not going on in the field,
Basically,
tell me what you want to do. It doesn't matter to me one way or another what you do. I'm just trying to keep these guys from redoing their work multiple times unnecessarily. If
Understood.
we can't get on the playground,
in case anybody is listening to the meeting that uses the park, I think we only have closed the skate park and the playground at this point. With the splash pad isn't open yet. But I don't think the playgrounds, the 3 playgrounds within the park and the skate park are the things that have been closed. But the question is, do we put some signage up just to let people know that we really don't want them using the fields at this point? And I think we've heard the opinion of the board that, yeah, we should put up some signage. Again, it's probably not going to be something we police. I don't foresee myself calling the police on anybody over this, but if we want to discourage it, I don't think that that's a bad thing.
That's the stance we've taken on everything else. We're not going to be up there policing it, but just, guys have enough work to do. That it's no, I don't want to be redundant what I'm saying, but they make an improvement to something and they move on to the next, and they come back and find out they've got to do it over again. And I just, it's just I'll do whatever the town board wants. So if it's fine, I'll contact them and we'll see how it works out.
Okay.
I'm still leaning in the fact that we should put the signs up. I think that's the conclusion we've all come to.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Bob. Thank you. And I have a few items to report. First of all, one thing that I realized I've neglected to do in these meetings is just to make sure I say a big thank you both to, well, not both, to Jim Bell, our town attorney, to Randy Hoke, to Karen Sweeting, as well as to Lisa Strabel for keeping pace with the executive orders with regard to these meetings and how they're to operate. They've worked very hard on making sure that we're streaming these meetings, that we've been recording them, transcribing them. Karen does the hard work of transcribing all of this. We get these uploaded, the transcripts and the videos. We get them on our website within a day or two of our meetings, and we make sure we link everything so that our residents can find the information disseminated at these meetings promptly. So I really appreciate it. I want to make sure all of you know that that's something that I think means a lot during these times when people feel so disconnected. It means a lot probably to those in this town whom we serve. So I really first of all, I just wanted to say that it's a lot of work. I know it moves fairly seamlessly in the way that we have it set up, but I want to make sure that everybody is recognized for the work they've done to make it seamless. So in terms of the last couple months, as Patty said, we really haven't done reports in a couple months' time. I'm not going to certainly report on everything we've done in relation to the town the last 6 months because that would be voluminous. But suffice it to say that each day, well, most days, I don't make the calls every day, but I participate regularly in the conference calls with state and county officials. Twice a week, we have calls with the other town supervisors, as well as some other calls with the county executive and those as needed, just to stay abreast of all the changes and the information that might be applicable. Lisa and I also participated in a call with FEMA back on April 2nd with regard to disaster funding. Unfortunately, we don't really have any out-of-pocket costs. We haven't set up a field hospital or anything like that, so there really isn't anything we can apply for with FEMA, but we have vetted that program. And just like probably most of our residents and maybe most of the folks on the board, I stay up on the governor's daily press conferences as well as the president's as he was doing them. I understand he stopped that now, but just to try to stay abreast of what's going on in terms of the state as well as nationally. The board is, I think, well aware that there's 2 little programs that we've started at the town. One was a collection of masks that were being handmade by people that started as a United Way program that Heidi McPherson, the SUNY president, worked to get the community involved in. And shortly after I announced that the town was going to work on that, the fire department, the chief of the fire department reached out and said, hey, we need about 100 masks. Could you guys loop us in on this? So at this point, we've collected well over 300 masks. We've met the fire department's needs. We've met the need. Well, we've donated a number to the United Way effort, and we've distributed some through what we're calling, again, it's aptly named, we're calling it the Neighbors Helping Neighbors program. And what we did is we started compiling a list of volunteers, people willing to do things for others in this community, as well as people who are struggling. There are a number of social welfare programs or safety nets that try to help people during times of need, but there are gaps in how those programs overlap, and we wanted to make sure that if anybody was struggling with food needs or with just making a run to the supermarket, or maybe with yard chores, or with a need for a mask, let's say, that they were plugged in and connected to a volunteer. And so we have about 15 volunteers at this point. We've met a number of needs as we pair these volunteers with people who call in looking for help, and it's ranged, like I said, from doing a grocery run for people to dropping off masks, to just disseminating information that people need. So they're small programs. They're good. I think they're positive efforts, and hopefully they reach those who are in need in our community. I have, especially the last month, I've taken several interview requests with Spectrum on this Neighbors Helping Neighbors program, as well as the masks donation effort. And also I met with Channel 10 last week. They called asking for an interview on the assessment question or issue. In terms of what the town hall departments, that's the part of the town that I liaise to. First of all, I've been communicating with department heads here in the town hall regularly. It's certainly not daily or even weekly at this point, but as needed. Building and planning department, they're doing some inspections. They're processing an awful lot of paperwork. The planning board is working on actually holding hearings once again. Their first hearing is going to be on May 11th. They're going to be doing that through Zoom. And the hope and the effort, what I've challenged, or perhaps what the department has challenged itself to do, is to get everybody who wants to build or do something that requires permitting here in the town, to get them ramped up so that as soon as the economy reopens, or as soon as we're given the go-ahead, all of these projects can get going. We hope that it'll really be a wave, and it will bring us back. So planning and building, they're actively working. Town clerk's office, I know they're handling as many duties as is feasible with the restrictions. They are looking to ramp up and do more things like marriage licenses. The governor made a new order about that just last week. So that's happening in the clerk's office. Tax collection, we're still collecting all the taxes. Still collecting taxes via the Dropbox, online or by mail. One item to note, in case people have not heard, either in the paper or on Facebook, the fourth installment date has been extended from April 30th to May 31st. The one thing, when the county executive held the call to announce that to the supervisors, I did ask him if they would delay the tax sale that's coming this fall. So every year, delinquent taxes are sold to private companies who then work to collect them. If they don't collect them in a timely manner, then they proceed with tax foreclosure, and people can lose their property over it. So I did ask the county executive to investigate delaying that tax sale, and we haven't heard back on it, but I know that it's at least in the hopper for ideas coming up. Assessments, Darla and Tammy are very busy at the moment, working to address resident concerns, do informal reevaluations of the reassessments to try to address as many concerns ahead of the Board of Assessment review. Obviously, we addressed a lot of residents' concerns with the reassessment process and why it's necessary this year, although it's admittedly a horrible time to do it. The town board really feels that financially for the town and for our residents, the cost to residents and to the town of not doing the reassessment will be far greater than the reassessment process will bring. So I certainly am happy to answer any resident questions or concerns, either if people want to email me, supervisor@townofsweden.org, or call my office, which is 637-7588, or I'm happy to take calls on my cell phone as well, 5243. So if anybody has assessment concerns, I believe your town board understands. We're all in this town. Every one of us saw an increase as well. It's not a good time. It's unwelcome, but hopefully will not result in many actual tax increases. What's more likely is everybody simply sees an increase in assessments, and hopefully, therefore, we keep the revenue to the town fairly stable, and there aren't actual tax increases that follow. So in short, the efforts of our the various departments within the town hall, I just have to say that I'm extremely pleased. Everybody's doing what we can. We see that everybody's putting in significant work hours, even in this time when they can't work at their desks and here at the office as much. So I know everybody's putting in their best, and as soon as we get through this process or to a more open process, we'll be off and running. We're not going to be back at ground zero. So I really appreciate what the town employees are doing all across the town, but also here at the town hall. Okay, and then just a couple of actual project notes. The sidewalks, so the four concrete projects. The sidewalk that runs north out of the park on Persistence Path, it's also known as the Path to the Canal. The Holly Street sidewalk on the north side of Holly Street from the terminus of the sidewalk. It's a village line out to Holly Street. The Owens Road east side sidewalk, as well as the slab in front of the highway garage. Those four projects, we have a pre-bid phone conference with any interested bidders. That's on the 30th, so 2 days from now, Thursday, 10 a.m. And then we'll actually be opening the bids on the 7th of May. We'll probably be doing that with a combination of conference call and Facebook streaming. That details on that are still being worked out. Code changes. So we've got that list of code changes that Jim put together. He actually put the draft code changes together, excuse me. What I'd like to do is our workshop next week on the 5th of May, that we would deal with those code changes next week so that hopefully we could actually call a public hearing and then pass them shortly thereafter. Okay, so we will have a meeting next week. Water, MRB provided and I signed all the plans, and they were filed with New York State Department of, the DEC, New York State DEC, New York State DOT, Monroe County DOT, as well as the Monroe County Water Authority. So those filings have been done. Currently, MRB is setting up all the boring tests. They're going to start, so that people see them out actually drilling test holes, seeing how deep the bedrock is, trying to make sure that their estimates are correct. So that'll be commencing very quickly, probably, maybe even next week. And there are going to be more answers that we're going to be filing with USDA. They still need a pile of information and documents from us. Tons of it is financial in nature, so we're still working on those things. And then finally, despite the meat cleaver to our local economy that this whole process has been, CNB has been issued a C of O, so at some point, hopefully, people can actually use that bank once banks are allowed to reopen. So that's where we stand, at least from my perspective. So that completes all the reports. We do have one person signed up for privilege of the floor this evening, but he did not call in. He's not on the line, so we'll move on to the next item, which is the consent agenda. There are 4 items on the consent agenda, the first being the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting on April 14th, 2020. The second is a resolution appointing an MEO, Dale Foster, for the Highway Department. The third, a resolution appointing seasonal laborers in the park. And the fourth, a resolution appointing seasonal laborers in cemetery operations. So as to those 4 items, would the board like anything moved to the non-consent agenda?
I would like items 2, 3, and 4 moved to the non-consent agenda.
Okay, Patty, I've got that. So items 2, 3, and 4 will be moved to non-consent. Everybody okay with the minutes staying on the consent agenda?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, then can I have a motion on the consent agenda, which just includes the minutes at this point?
So moved, Bob.
Second.
Second. Thank you, Patty. All right, any discussion on the minutes? All right, Karen, if you call the roll, please.
Councilperson Hales?
Aye.
Councilperson Hoke?
Aye.
Councilperson Humby?
Aye.
Councilperson Musbeck?
Aye.
Supervisor Johnson?
Aye. Minutes are approved. Thank you. All right, non-consent agenda this evening. We have number one, payment of the bills. So as to that item, could I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, was that Rhonda?
It was Patty.
Did somebody, that was Patty. Okay, thank you. Could I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bob.
Bob?
Any discussion on the payment of bills?
I do have one question, and I don't want to breach any personnel confidentiality. There's an item, Lisa, for to pay New York State unemployment insurance, and I'm wondering how long of a period that covers. Do we pay that monthly or quarterly? That is just the first quarter of this year. I didn't hear her answer.
Yeah, you got to put the phone right up to your ear, Lisa.
Patty?
Oh, me?
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, it was just the first quarter.
So it is a quarter.
And
Okay.
Yes, and because unemployment has been extended, it's probably going to go much longer.
Mhm. All right. I was just curious. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, any other discussion on the payment of bills? Okay, Karen, if you call the roll again, please.
Councilperson Hales?
Aye.
Councilperson Hoke?
Aye.
Councilperson Humby?
Aye.
Councilperson Musbeck?
Aye.
Supervisor Johnson?
Aye. All right, bills are approved. As to the what is now the second resolution on the non-consent agenda, appointing the MEO, Dale Foster, in the Highway Department, could I have a motion, please?
Bob makes a motion.
Randy seconds.
Okay, any discussion?
So here's my thinking on that. We've known about Dale Foster for a while now, and always wanting to err on the side of caution and the uncertain times that we live in financially for the town as well as everyone else. And I've heard all the rationale of why he needs to be hired now. A replacement employee needs to be hired at this time. But I feel it's irresponsible to add one additional dollar to our payroll during this crisis. And until the New York State pause has been lifted, and for the safety of our employees, I don't believe that the Highway Department should be returning to full staffing. We've said this for all of our employees, and I don't see that there's a difference in the way our Highway Department should be treated. And I understand that that's the rationale of wanting to add this employee now, is that they're not going to work every, I'm going to say, half days, not half days, but about half of their normal scheduled hours, that the plan is for them to go back to full work week. And I'm very concerned about this for their safety as well as everyone else's. And I think the current pause remains in effect until May 15th. We have another town board meeting on May 12th. By that time, we will have a much better sense of the pandemic in New York State, and especially in Monroe County. Monroe County has had, rather than a decreasing number of cases and deaths of late, within the last week to 10 days, has had an escalating number of cases and deaths. And so early on, we came to the conclusion that we should not have any unnecessary spending until we had a clear path forward in consideration of the COVID-19 epic. And with all due respect to Brian and his crew, I hope the board will consider voting this resolution down tonight and then reconsidering it when we have a clearer picture of things on May 12th. And I know this might not be a popular decision, but we were all elected to represent all of our 14,000 residents, and I feel that's the best course of action for all of our residents, is not to be adding payroll dollars at this time.
Okay, thank you, Patty.
This is Jim. If I can just bring up a procedural point, there's a difference between voting it down and tabling it. If you table it, you can revisit it in the future. If you vote it down, you can't bring the same resolution back in the future.
Thank you, Jim. So then I'm making a motion to table this resolution until our next meeting.
All right. Well, a motion to table cuts off all further discussion of the initial motion. So at this time, we'll move directly to whether or not there's a second for the motion to table from Patty. All right. So am I hearing that there is no second to Patty's motion? All right. The motion to table fails for lack of a second. So any further discussion on the original motion, which is the motion to appoint, a resolution to appoint Dale Foster? Brian, did you, well, we already had a motion, and I believe we've got a second, so we're already in discussion on that. Brian, is there anything you would like to, I did ask you in particular in case you wanted to address the hiring questions. Is there anything you'd like to address the board on in that regard? Don't have to, but I thought I'd ask.
Yeah, obviously if the board's going to allow the highway department to continue with full staff. Obviously, we went to full staff this week for our spring pickup operations. We're going to be moving into our first bond project, which we had to have a certain sum of money spent, I think, before June 1st, if I'm not mistaken. And some of the phases of that project, we need upwards of 20 to 25 people, especially for the milling and filling operation. So we're going to be calling other towns for help. So I wanted to get the full staff with hiring Dale to be at full staff before we started calling other towns for assistance with that project. And obviously, once we continue on with that project, we have a full slate of county and town work to do after that, with a long laundry list of drainage work orders and things we just haven't had time to get to.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion?
This is Randy. I guess I'd point out that, our highway department was deemed essential staff. The residents are relying on them to take care of the roads, the brush, the drainage, the trees that need to come down that are safety issues. I mean, roads are certainly a safety issue, and I know Brian's got a limited amount of time to deal with that. So that's why I'm in favor of pushing forward.
I just want to say, too, we only have a small window of time, for our roadwork season. And obviously, it's our, most important to us to keep our employees safe, too. And I'd be more than willing to explain our process for keeping our employees safe.
Thanks, Brian.
All right. Any other discussion on the resolution to appoint Dale Foster? Okay, Karen, if you call the roll, please.
Councilperson Hales?
Nay.
Councilperson Hoke?
Aye.
Councilperson Humby?
Aye.
Councilperson Musbeck?
Aye.
Supervisor Johnson?
Aye. The resolution carries. Next item, number 3 on the non-consent agenda is appointing seasonal laborers at the park. Could I have a motion on that, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right, so a motion on the appointing seasonal laborers, please.
So I think Bobby
So
made
moved,
the
Rhonda.
motion,
I made a
Okay.
motion.
and Randy seconded it already.
Oh, did they? Okay, I didn't hear them do it. All right, so we've got Bob on the motion, Randy on the second. Any discussion on the appointing seasonal laborers?
I'd
So
just
here
like
I
to
am
say
again.
one-
Oh, go ahead.
Let me speak first, please. The seasonal laborers that we work in the park are all returnees who have been working in the past years, and Todd and Roger are very, very astute as far as when they come in and when they not the need to work. But this is the time of the year we normally get them approved to work, and like I said, they're all been repeaters for a number of years. So that's all I have to say.
Patty?
And I respect that, Bob, but I feel even more strongly about this in the fact that we have quite a number of staff that a good portion of their week is idle time. And I've heard the explanation that people who mow need to be trained and it's very difficult and all this. And I understand perfectly that one staff person cannot always interchange with another. But in the past, I understand that these people that we're talking about tonight are repeat employees, seasonal employees. But in the past, we've used on a very regular basis and for many, many years, college students and everything else to run these mowers for the summer. So I think it's irresponsible of us to add dollars to the payroll with seasonal employees while we have like recreation staff and other staff that are idle that could be running these mowers when we're already paying them. So I don't understand why we're hiring seasonal employees at this time when every 2 weeks we get the opportunity to hire the seasonal employees and we could delay these hirings. So again, I'm going to make the motion to table this motion and to be considered on May 12th rather than hiring them at this point. I feel that's the responsible thing fiscally for the board to do.
Okay, thank you, Patty. So we have a motion to table. Is there a second for that motion?
May I ask a question, Kevin? This is Rhonda.
Yes, Rhonda, go ahead.
Is the budget for these employees, the seasonal workers, is this already budgeted and approved?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure. So this isn't an additional cost that we didn't know about. This is already budgeted, and we're expecting them to start now.
That's
Yes,
correct.
but Rhonda, we're going to lose a lot of revenue that's also budgeted. Look at all the fees
I totally
that
understand.
we're returning. I'm sorry,
I
what?
completely understand. Yep, I understand
Okay.
what you're saying. I just wanted to verify.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, so is there a second on the motion to table? All right, the motion fails for want of a second. We're back to the initial motion, which is the resolution to appoint seasonal laborers in the park. Any further discussion on that? And of course, Jim, I defer to you as the parliamentarian if I've confused the rules in any way. Please step in.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion then on appointing the seasonal laborers? Okay, then Karen, if you call the roll, please.
Councilperson Hales.
Nay.
Councilperson Hoke.
Aye.
Councilperson Humby.
Aye.
Councilperson Musbeck.
Aye.
Supervisor Johnson.
Aye. The resolution's approved. All right, the final resolution this evening, appointing number 4 on the non-consent agenda, resolution appointing seasonal laborers for cemetery operations. So can I have a motion on that, please?
So moved, Rhonda.
Second.
And a second? Thank you, Randy. All right, any discussion on that motion or further motions?
And just because I've enjoyed this past 2 conversations so much, I'm going to make a motion again to table this resolution until our next meeting for all the reasons I have stated for items 2 and 3.
Understood. Thank you, Patty. We have a motion on the table. Would anyone, a motion to table before the board. Do we have a second on that motion? Okay, hearing no second, the motion to table fails for want of a second. And we're back to the initial motion, which was appointing seasonal laborers for cemetery operations. So any further discussion on that point? All right. Karen, if you call the roll again, please.
Councilperson Hales.
Nay.
Councilperson Hoke.
Aye.
Councilperson Humby.
Aye.
Councilperson Musbeck.
Aye.
Supervisor Johnson.
Aye. The resolution is approved. Okay, thank you, everyone. Next item, additional business and announcements. I have one item, but I'll defer to the rest of the board if they have anything they'd like to add. Okay, hearing nothing, I did want to note that our effort to see that the governor, or to ask the governor to delay the reassessment process is, as I think the board is well aware, but also as those who follow both the Suburban News, where that letter was published this weekend, as well as on Facebook, where we have publicized that letter. Senator Rob Ort, as well as Assemblyman Steve Hawley, signed a joint letter mirroring our request to the governor, requesting that essentially that municipalities be given the option to go back to their 19 assessments without an equalization rate. So we'll see if this gains any traction in the governor's office, and let's hope it does. If it doesn't, I think we've still made the best decision to protect the financial situation of our residents in the town. So the final item, I would like to ask the board for a rather brief but important executive session under Public Officers Law 105 Subdivision A, which is the public safety exception. I would like to invite our finance director, Lisa Strabel, as well as the town attorney to that executive session, and I'd ask the board for a motion on that.
So moved.
Okay, Rhonda with the motion, and Bob, would you second that?
Sure.
No, it was Patty with the motion and then Bob.
Okay, sorry about that. It's hard to tell. Appreciate that. Okay, any discussion on that motion? All right, then can I have a voice vote? All in favor of the executive session? Aye?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we'll move into executive session. We will not come back to the regular meeting. No official business will be transacted in the executive session. And I appreciate everyone watching or participating in the meeting here tonight. Thank you. Okay, everyone, just hold on just a minute if you would. Okay, everyone, are you still there?
Yep. Kevin, did you stop recording?